Okay.
Sorry. This is a crime that is 100% preventable. Mr. Hernandez Martinez certainly did not set out to cause harm. That is exactly what he did. So damn slow. And the positive things that we've heard about him, that he was a hard worker, has a family that loves him, is perhaps. All right, you're up.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome in. We're a little late to the party today, but nonetheless, we've got plenty to party with out there. A lot of storms around the First Coast. We just had a severe thunderstorm warning. It expired 15 minutes ago, so if you were with us then, we promised you we would be back at 4 o'clock, so we appreciate you tuning in here with us today. If you're new to the program, I am meteorologist Ross Mumal, typically joined by Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner, but he worked this morning, has the evening off, so you've just got me here now for the rest of your Friday night. But let's take a look at what some of the thunderstorms are currently doing and looking like out there across the First Coast right now. Taking a little bit of a closer look toward Duval County, specifically in the Jacksonville area. As I had mentioned, we had a severe thunderstorm warning for northern Duval County that I believe got issued right around about 4:15, ran until 3:15, ran until 3:45. Quickly began to weaken. Still a decent amount of lightning, though, within the storm, most of which is now beginning to push offshore, really right near Huguenot Park, Talbot Island, Boneyard Beach, that portion of Duval County. But we had just blinding torrential rain over Duval Station and Ocean Way up there north of 295. Yellow Bluff Road also experiencing some of that. So still a lot of lightning out there and some pretty moderate to heavy rain. But this storm is continuing to weaken here now right over northern Duval and up towards the airport. Elsewhere, we're also watching a storm that was firing up pretty substantially over the Callahan area. That has since also begun to pulse down. And that's kind of a trend with some of these storms, especially when they're relatively slow moving. The steering flow is out of the west and southwest, so many of them will drift eastward as the afternoon and evening wears on, but it's not super strong, so fairly slow moving storms. The downdraft and the rain shaft of the storms can sometimes collapse the updraft, which is what is, feeding the storm all the energy and moisture that it needs to sustain itself. And that's kind of what we're seeing out there today. There we go. Now we're back. I'm not sure what court case that is, but I'm sure we have plenty of details for you on firstcoastnews.com about that. Elsewhere, though, southern Charlton, Ware County, a cluster of thunderstorms there. South sides of Waycross, so right up along US 1 and even Highway 301, a few thunderstorms. North of Brantley County up towards Jessup, a few thunderstorms up there as well. And that's really the area that we're going to be watching. You see those green shaded areas. That is a flood watch that is in effect from 5 p.m. until midnight tonight. So that's going to be for northern Ware, Pierce, Brantley, far northeastern Charlton County, and then Camden and Glenn County. So from 5 p.m. until midnight tonight, there is going to be a flood watch in place because there are some thunderstorms that are going to begin to develop a little bit further off to the west that will make their way eastward as the evening wears on. And that's all stemming from a cold front that is dropping in from the north. It's going to stall out pretty much right over South Georgia, almost just south of Macon, but north of Waycross, essentially. And that's really just going to give rise to some more thunderstorm development and rain chances here. So anywhere up and down along that frontal boundary, up and down that line, we're going to be watching for some thunderstorms. Further southward then, if you have a few isolated thunderstorms and showers and downpours down towards Hastings there in southwestern St. Johns County, and then right along Highway 17. So north of Palatka there, northeastern Putnam County, right up Highway 17. So through Green Cove Springs, up towards Orange Park, Oak Leaf, seeing some thunderstorms there, beginning to not only cross over the St. Johns River, but you have those outflow boundaries pushing off to the south and southwest from those storms in the northeastern part of Duval County. So those very thin green lines, those are the outflow boundaries pushing further to the south and southwest, and that's now colliding with the storms moving through Orange Park, Fleming Island, almost now making their way across the St. Johns River over towards Mandarin, Julington Creek, Rivertown, starting to see some of those showers and storms, and also building along the sea breeze front, which is just to the west of I-95 there in Duval and St. Johns County. So I know there's a lot of different boundaries going around. Essentially, the collisions of the separate boundaries and the sea breeze fronts are giving rise to some of these thunderstorms that we have out there this afternoon and will continue as such this evening. So if we just zoom in, yeah, there we go. Looking at Creekside High School, it's where our game of the week is. Mandarin Mustangs taking on the Creekside Knights. Some rain moving in on the western sides of Creekside. So going to be a little bit rainy there. Elsewhere, there's a look at some of the other games that our First Coast News sports team will be covering. Of course, week 1 of Sideline 2025. Expect the bleachers to be wet pretty much wherever you're at. More than likely, you will have seen some rain at some point throughout this afternoon and into the early evening. But I do want to stress most of the games around Duval County, Clay, Nassau, and St. Johns County. So if you're heading out to a Friday night football game anywhere around the Jacksonville metro area, kind of as a whole, there will be some lingering showers, but the lightning and thunderstorm risk will have gone down substantially by 6:30 and 7 p.m. kickoff. So we're going to watch to see if pregame warmups are impacted anywhere based off of what the thunderstorms and reflectivity are currently looking like out there. We are not expecting that, but of course, we're going to watch very, very closely. So similar story for our game of the week. Again, Mandarin and Creekside. Some storms will be possible up until 6 p.m., but more than likely, most of the storm threats will start to go down within the next hour and a half to 2 hours at the most. So have the rain gear ready. Have that towel or the blanket. Dry off the bleachers. Get yourself a nice little spot to cheer on whoever you're out there supporting tonight. It's going to be wet, kind of just damp and muggy. But the storm threat, thankfully, will begin to go down, at least for the Jacksonville area. Now, we are still going to have the weather impact alert in effect through 8 p.m., partially due to the Friday night games and the outdoor plans that you might have out there, but also for folks who live up in southeastern Georgia. Any of the football games up across Camden or Glenn County, up towards Waycross, Ware County, wherever you're at up in southeastern Georgia, we are still going to be watching for thunderstorms after 7 p.m., closer to 8, 9 o'clock. Still could be some heavy rain out there, which could certainly impact some of the football games or just in general Friday evening plans that you might have. So weather impact alert still going to be in effect through 8 p.m. I mentioned the flood watch across southeastern Georgia. The Weather Prediction Center also in line with that with their excessive rainfall risk, showing that slight risk for those northern southeastern Georgia counties. Rest of the First Coast currently included in that level 1 out of 4 marginal risk for excessive rainfall. So this is what models are trying to show here through the rest of this evening. I would say they're probably a little bit behind when you're looking at Clay and Jacksonville or Clay and Duval County. But further northward, again, up towards Folkston, Nahunta, Waycross, Brunswick even, that's really going to be the area that we're watching for perhaps some more development through the rest of this evening. After 10 or 11 p.m., rain chances begin to go down. But then looking ahead to your Saturday, you'll note some early morning convection out towards the Gulf Coast and perhaps as far east as I-75. And then as the afternoon, wears on into the early evening hours, we're going to have some storms moving in from the west. The sea breeze is going to start to move in from the east. We're expecting plenty of sea breeze collisions and outflow boundary collisions to occur through the late afternoon and into the evening hours. So another round of potentially heavy rainfall and a stormy afternoon and evening for your Saturday as well. I would say based off of this model, I don't necessarily agree with this completely. I expect there to be a lot more coverage and activity than what this is currently showing. Some of our other shorter range models are being a little bit more aggressive with regards to the coverage of rain and the intensity of rain and thunderstorm activity, just based off of the last 2 days, right? I mean, some places yesterday picked up 2 to 2.5 inches of rain. Today, we've seen rainfall rates pretty much falling at a similar clip. Tomorrow, the environment's pretty much going to be the same. There's going to be a few tweaks here or there, but precipitable water values, how much water is available to fall in the atmosphere, they're above 2 inches. 2 to 2.25, almost 2.5. So because of that, it's just so saturated. The air is heavy rainfall rate. So when it does storm, it's going to pour quite a bit. So blinding rain certainly going to make any travel plans that you have out there quite difficult and treacherous at times. I will apologize for this quick because I didn't have enough time to update it completely, because we were tracking the severe thunderstorm warning. This is Saturday's rain chances, not Friday's. But timing-wise, it's pretty much the same as today. We're also going to have a weather impact alert in effect for your Saturday and for your Sunday as well. Take notice, temperature is going to be a little bit cooler, upper 80s, but that's really just because we're expecting the increase in cloud cover, primarily due to the thunderstorms that are beginning to pop up a little bit earlier in the day, kind of like today. I mean, by 12:30, 1 o'clock, we were already seeing a lot of pockets of at least downpours at the very least, if not some isolated storms. That's pretty much the same pattern we're expecting for Saturday and Sunday as well. And the excessive rainfall, that's going to continue through Saturday. I haven't put one in here for Sunday, but it looks almost identical. So we're going to have at least that level 1 out of 4 marginal risk for excessive rainfall each of the next 3 days, including today. And just remember, if you do get a downpour or a storm that comes over you that drops 2 or 2.5 inches today, you're going to be more susceptible to flooding concerns the next 2 days, because you've already got 2 inches of water sitting in your backyard now. Any additional rainfall is just going to add to it. That continues to stack up, and those rain totals really begin to increase quite substantially. So we have a lot of flood advisories currently in effect across the First Coast. That really just means there's a minor chance of flooding, especially in the urban areas and poor drainage and low-lying areas. I expect a lot more of those flood advisories to be issued, possibly flash flood warnings over the weekend, considering where some of the heavier rain does fall. And some of the storms could be strong to severe, like we saw here today. Wind gusts can get upwards of 50 to 60 miles per hour if the storm's updraft pulses up enough to reach that strength. Typically, they're fairly short-lived. They don't last that long. The severe thunderstorm warnings are generally only about 25 to 30 minutes with these types of storms. So we'll watch for that threat through the rest of the weekend. Few stronger storms producing some gusty winds. The heavy rainfall threaten that localized flooding concern. But there is some hope out there for you. So let's look at the atmospheric moisture flow, or the precipitable water content. You see those dark greens with us through the weekend as the first front sits over us. Then by early next week, we have a stronger front coming in from the north. So the first one that we have over the weekend, that was really pulled in by Hurricane Aaron moving off to the northeast. The second one, this is coming straight down out of Canada. Now, it's not going to bring us Canadian-like air here, unfortunately. If you're a fall lover, you want to get your pumpkin spice on a little bit early in the season. We're not going to be feeling much of a cool down necessarily, but there's a lot of dry air in place behind that front. That will work its way down towards the First Coast, especially by Tuesday and into Wednesday. So our dew points are going to be a little bit lower, which makes it feel a little bit more comfortable, right? And often when that dew point's little lower, our overnight temperatures or our overnight lows can also drop down a little bit more. So recently we've had a lot of low temperatures overnight, 73, 74 degrees, 75 even in some spots. By next Tuesday, next Wednesday, we could see morning lows down 71, 70. Inland locations, especially up across inland southeast Georgia, could see overnight lows in the upper 60s, which I know isn't that chilly, but it is a lot better than overnight lows in the mid to upper 70s, if not even close to 80 degrees that we've experienced through a large portion of the summer. So some drier air by early to middle parts of next week, somewhat cooler, at least for the morning lows. And the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day temperature outlook also showing that we're right on the fringe of somewhat cooler than normal temperatures. But really the heart of it's going to be across the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys, the Carolinas, mid-Atlantic. They're going to have a very nice cool down on the way there by next week. Now, let's switch things up a little bit. Let's talk about the tropics. As I said, Hurricane Aaron now down to a Category 1 storm, pulling away from New England and the mid-Atlantic, bringing some rough surf to portions of Nova Scotia and perhaps up towards Newfoundland, but going to soon be a long and distant memory for us. So we're really not going to touch on Aaron much more than that. Two other areas the National Hurricane Center is monitoring, first of which is just to the north of the Leeward Islands, or northeast of the Leeward Islands, pretty much headed in a fairly similar track to what Aaron took, a little bit more, further east. So if you know anyone in Bermuda, they still need to be, not necessarily on high alert, but just make sure they are aware there is possibly another storm headed their way. 90% chance of development within the next week, but really the key thing there is an 80% chance of development over the next 2 days. So more than likely going to get our next named storm. And then another area further off to the south there in the central Atlantic, only given a 40% chance over the next 7 days, kind of headed towards the Lesser Antilles. So the first of those, as I mentioned, just to the north of the Leeward Islands and northeast of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, Invest 90L, sustained winds only at 30 miles per hour. So still relatively weak, kind of just a cluster of showers and storms. It's moving over waters that were pretty worked over from Hurricane Aaron, so there was some upwelling, somewhat cooler ocean temperatures out there right now. Not a lot, but not nearly as warm or as juicy as what it was when Aaron, was approaching. But if a storm were to develop, that would then become tropical depression, tropical storm Fernan. So that's the next name on the list. And again, that could occur over this coming weekend. So we could get our F name, Fernan, over the weekend. And then down to the central Atlantic, just to the northeast of South America, there is tropical wave Invest 99L, a little bit stronger, 35 miles per hour, but really that's a pretty large area of some disorganized showers and storms. Models not really showing a whole lot of activity with that one either. If something were to develop, it would be Gabrielle. So the next two names on the list, Fernan and Gabrielle. Of course, you look at the rest of them. We had tropical storm, tropical storm, tropical storm, Cat 5. Just kind of hit you in the face with that one there as Hurricane Aaron rapidly intensified last weekend. So we'll watch to see if Fernan or Gabrielle develop over the weekend. Here are the forecast models or spaghetti plots from both of these storms. You'll note what could become Fernan, that Invest 90L that heads up towards Bermuda. Models are very much in line with that. So if you know anyone in Bermuda, they need to be aware, but we'll be nearly 1,000 miles east of the First Coast in Jacksonville here through the next 5 days. So that won't be a concern to us. Invest 99L, the one down in the central Atlantic, you'll note fairly due west track, headed towards kind of the southern end of the Lesser Antilles and moves into the southwestern Caribbean, or southeastern Caribbean, a little bit closer to South America. Models don't show a whole lot of intensification with this or strengthening. Might reach that tropical depression status because it doesn't have to strengthen a lot to perhaps reach that, but most models don't show more than a tropical storm from that, if at all, and kind of just keeps it disorganized, keeps it pinned to the south. So neither of these looking to pose a concern to the United States or to the First Coast. Wind shear kind of going to limit the overall potential for some strengthening, at least for that storm further south in the central Atlantic. And we've had these pretty big dips in the jet stream coming down across the eastern third of the country. Typically those troughs and these big, dips in the jet stream, that's something we'll see a little bit more so in September and October. To have it this early in the season is a little bit rare, but the troughs will often protect us and kind of act as a barrier. There's a lot of wind shear within them. The upper level flow can often pick up storms and propel them away from the First Coast. So troughs kind of keeping us safe here, at least for the time being. And then there are a couple more plumes of Saharan dust that are expected to almost be expelled from Western Africa and the Saharan desert out across the central Atlantic. So you saw this goes from now through next Saturday. There's really two separate plumes that'll come across. That'll also just, kind of limit any sort of development to the north of where that Invest 99L is. That's why it's going to keep it pinned a little bit further southward. That, along with where the Bermuda High is going to be situated, it's going to allow that first storm to kind of wrap right up around in Aaron's wake and then slide a little bit further southward, keep that other storm pinned further to the south in South America. Key points and takeaways, again, not going to be a concern for either of us. We could just get our next two named storms. We'll check them off the list if they occur, but really won't be of any issue or impact locally for us here on the First Coast or anywhere in Florida or the southeastern United States. But still have a long way to go. Remember, the peak of hurricane season, September 10th. So we're still, about 2.5 weeks out from the peak of the season. And really, we get about 70 to 75% of our actual storms and hurricanes between now and October 22nd. So within the next 2 months, that's where we get almost 3/4 of our storms more often than not. That's when the ocean waters are the warmest. It's when the conditions are just the most conducive. So we've lucked out to a certain extent so far here in the forecast, or within the season, I guess I should say. But we still have a long way to go. There are some hints that at least through early September, okay? So within the next 10 days, not a whole lot to be concerned about. Obviously, the National Hurricanes Outlook goes out for the next 7, but really it's going to be at least the next 10, if not even the next 14 days. Not a whole lot of activity being shown on the European model or the American GFS model or some of the other longer range ones. There's not a whole lot of worry there. Some of the global tropics hazards outlooks that look beyond that, so 14 to 21 days out, there are some signs that yes, there could be a few more tropical waves that begin to develop off the west coast of Africa and begin to make their way a little bit further westward. But that's pretty standard. That's what we see during this time of the year. So that's not really out of the ordinary. It's not a cause for alarm, but just a reminder that, we're in that time of the year that we're going to see more tropical waves in areas that the National Hurricane Center will highlight that they're watching for development. Doesn't mean it's going to impact us. Doesn't mean it will strengthen or anything like that. But just some more areas to watch here over the next couple of months. So don't let your guard down. Keep your hurricane plan and stay prepared as best you can, over the next 2 months or so. So let's get you one last look at the 7-day here before we go. Weather impact alerts in effect for your Friday night, but also your Saturday and your Sunday as well. 80% coverage for storms both days. Have backup plans if you have outdoor plans and they get rained out. Be aware of the lightning risk. We've had some unconfirmed reports of lightning strikes hitting some buildings out there today, perhaps causing some fires. I know that happened yesterday as well. So please stay safe, stay aware with that. Still some isolated storms on Monday, but then that front finally begins to move in. Not really cooling us down, but some much drier air. So lower rain chances on Tuesday and Wednesday. Your overnight temperature is going to be a little bit lower, a little bit more comfortable. And then by next week, so this time next week, Thursday, Friday, although temperatures will be a little bit cooler, mid to upper 80s, we're going to have northeast onshore flow and a little bit more cloud cover. Rain and storm is going to be back in the forecast yet again. So until then, enjoy your Friday night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay weather aware. Stay safe